Good afternoon to you and yours. It is Friday, October 10th at 2:13 p.m. I'm going to talk a little bit about Big Ten Media Days, what I watched, what I saw from many of the interviews held with Trey Kaufman, Wren, Braden Smith, and Matt Painter. Just some thoughts on the fallout of that. Maybe we'll touch on football a little bit. I think we talked a lot about that on Monday, but Purdue plays Minnesota at 7:30 in Minneapolis tomorrow. But before I do it, I want to thank the people that make all of this possible. How do I get my Botox? Well, AJ's helps me do it. Honestly, they fund this whole thing. I'm just kidding. I don't get Botox, and Adam would never support something like that. If you're at Ross 8, if you're at Mackey Arena, take that 7-minute walk from Victory, head right towards the fire station, turn left. The blue and black lights will beckon you inside. You're going to go in there, and you're probably going to get, I don't know, Chicago beef. Maybe you'll do that. Maybe you're going to start it off with some mac and cheese bites. Maybe you're going to start off with some waffle fries and some Chipotle ranch, like I like to do when they're real crispy and they're fresh and hot. Can't beat them. But you're going to have a good time. Maybe you'll get a burger. I don't know. You can get whatever you want, and you're going to like it. And then you get a pint if you're of legal drinking age on a game day, and you get a magnet in the bottom. It's pretty awesome. Burgers, beef, beer. That's AJ's. AJ's.com. AJ's by the fire station. And also, if you're in the market for some just kick-ass, old-timey, retro Purdue gear or any other college, head over to homefieldapparel.com. They've got some really good stuff. Some stuff that's tempting me right now, I'll be real honest. But I'm trying to show a little bit of discipline because I generally like to get one thing per season, one or two things, and I got a hoodie already. So, but if you're looking for a hat, you're looking for a t-shirt, you're looking for a platinum pack, if you're looking for, dude, they got some new varsity jackets, and Purdue's got one in there. It's pretty awesome. Maybe if you got J Money type money, you can dig in the pockets and it's no big deal. But it's sharp, right? Regardless. Whatever you choose, you're going to look good. Homefieldapparel.com. All right. So good to see everybody. I see Ron Gable's here right away. It's going to be a good Friday. So let me paint a picture for you. All right. It's 2005. It's 20 years ago. And I tell you, hey, get this. In the future, you're going to have a 2-time National Player of the Year, and you're going to be number 1 ranked a couple times, 3 times. Then you're going to take a little bit of a year for rebuilding, regrouping, whatever you want. And then at Big Ten Media Day, you're going to have the reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, 2 All-Americans returning, and your Boilermakers are going to be number 1 in America again, like no big deal in the preseason. And that same guy who's reigning Big Ten Player of the Year is going to be preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. You'd say, you're nuts, number one. I don't think I saw that coming. I can tell you, I went back and I found a video from 2020 where I was looking ahead at what I thought would happen in the next 5 years. And I said, I think Purdue will go to the Final Four in that. I actually thought about posting it. I also said, I don't think Purdue will win a national championship. My feelings have shifted a little bit on that latter part. But I was right about going to Final Four in the next few years. I thought that Jaden Ivey and young Zach Edey was going to be an important part, and there were just some really good things lining up. Well, they all align this year, and that's really clear when you watch these Big Ten Media Days interviews. If you had a chance to do it, you probably saw what I saw. A lot of things you've already heard. That's the thing. If you're a dork like I am and you tune into Golden Black and you have been watching the interviews through the summer, through practice, all that, there's not a whole bunch new that I heard, but just the fact that Purdue was such a focus by so many different media outlets really got my attention. And I thought it was really amazing. It shows that, again, there's just one thing left to do for this program. Will they do it is the question. And can you enjoy it if they don't? And I mean you, collectively, Purdue fans. Every Purdue fan I know is excited about basketball. The football season not going great is part of that. But you guys have been talking about this since May and June, if we're being real honest, right? You've been looking forward to basketball season. And Media Day is really the kickoff of that, right? It really says, oh, we're getting close. October 26th, Purdue will head to Rupp Arena for an exhibition game. I'm going to give you a hint on how that's going to end. Purdue's going to lose that game, okay? I've said this before. I'm not telling you anything that's new, but Purdue loses exhibition games. Matt Painter likes to lose exhibition games. He likes for the team to learn from this. I hope the players aren't watching this because you don't want to give the plot away to them. But he thinks that there is more taken away generally from losses. And so how does he do it? How does he guarantee a loss? Number one, he doesn't put the team in the normal position to succeed. He does not put the normal lineups out there. He does not run normal action, normal plays. Doesn't want to give away too much, okay? It's not that difficult. Keep it close, but losing is not that big of a deal. That's what they did at Arkansas a couple of years ago, right? It's what they did against West Virginia over and over and over. I think they lost 2 or 3 in a row of those preseason exhibitions. This isn't a new thing. They did it versus Creighton. So if you're a historian, if you're a history buff, history of Purdue basketball, history of Matt Painter programs, that's what they do. But still, it's close. And I think it's going to excite many of us just to say, oh my gosh, we're almost here. I did something earlier today, and those leftover tickets that the athletic department put out there, I bought a couple tickets, a pair of tickets for my wife and I for a game. I'm excited to go. If you're anything like me, you don't have many monies, and so you're like, man, I can't afford a full season, and so I'm excited to go to that, hoping I get to go to a couple other games, but who knows right now. So I'm just a normal everyday fan. I'm not a guy either like some at Boiled Sports who refuse to sit anywhere but courtside. I'm not that guy. So I'm just excited to be in Mackey Arena for any game. So, but I am excited to go to that game. I'm not going to tell you which one it is right now, but I'm excited to go to that game. So here, one of the big takeaways that I had from Big Ten Media Day was Painter, and he hit this point over and over. He said last year in the pre-con, when Purdue played Auburn, Purdue was overmatched, was outplayed, didn't really belong on the same court as them. I remember the Marquette game being pretty bad too, especially towards the end where they just kind of stepped on Purdue. I also remember that, Texas A&M in Indianapolis in the closing minutes, Purdue looked overmatched. They should have won that game. They gave it away. But that Auburn game was kind of a splash of cold water, smelling salts, whatever you want to say, whatever analogy you want to use. That's what it was for Purdue. The funny thing is Matt Painter thought, well, okay, maybe we're just not put together completely. The loss of Jacobson hurt that team, especially right then. They were just getting used to life without Jacobson after he had just taken the starting role. And Purdue was really struggling with their lack of size. Well, this year, everything looks different. The roster looks different. The roster looks very, very well built. One thing Painter said in the wake of that, he said, if you're a top 15 team, even though you're not a top 5 team, you can still be a contender for a Final Four. And I may not have talked to my team about that enough. I thought that was a really interesting, weird point. Because I don't think we think of Painter and Purdue as a team that talks about national championships and Final Fours generally. Well, I didn't anyway until this year. But now it seems like this is something that's front and center for this program, and it's something that they want to kick down that door. They want to get in the Final Four and win a national title. And it really is the one thing that this program's missing. There's no doubt about it. Years ago, we all said they got to get to a Final Four to be considered elite. Okay, we've done that. And we all know they've got to finish the job. They have to finish the job to be considered elite, continually considered elite. Matt Painter is already another thing that I thought was really interesting, and you guys probably seen this if you're on Twitter at all. Gary Parrish talked to Painter in an interview, and he brought some of his research to Painter, and that was he had a bunch of conversations with current college basketball coaches, and they all love Paint. The biggest point, the coolest point was that by a wide margin, Painter's the one guy that those coaches would want to send their son to play for. I thought that was a very cool point. I thought that's a very well-earned point. That shows how respected you are as a man more than a coach. And then they also said he's the best X's and O's coach in America. And like Anish always says, and other people use this adage, Matt Painter is your favorite college coach's favorite coach. Well, Matt Painter's my favorite college coach. We've got the right guy. I said this to everybody, a week or two ago in a QuickCast. I said, man, aren't we blessed just to be in the position we are where we got Matt Painter as the head man at Purdue. Purdue's culture is so well established. And the another thing that the players kept saying during those interviews is the reason guys stick around is because Painter is so honest with them. And a lot of guys, most guys, in fact, that are up there in that elite ranking, that rare air, They're not real honest with their players. And what's that end up doing? Guys end up jumping ship and heading around. Well, Purdue doesn't lose starters, so they haven't yet. Thank God. They haven't yet lost a starter to the portal because of that honesty. Another thing I thought that was really, really interesting, I didn't know this, and I've been trying to figure out what's the secret sauce the last few years. How does Painter find his guys? And I always thought there was a group of questions because he talked about, okay, if they mention NIL money in the first conversation, it's kind of a red flag, and I back off them. Nothing against the kid. He just said it's not a good fit for Purdue. But there's another trick, and I don't know if you caught this in this media day conversation, and that is he gives personality tests to recruits. I think that's a really interesting thing. Number one, a personality test, I think for most kids is something they don't want to take. I believe that. Adults, I think we want to learn more about ourselves, especially in a business setting. A lot of people like to say, okay, I've taken one of those. Funny thing is, the personality test that I took, it had me lined up perfectly. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. It was a pretty deep one, hundreds of questions. I don't know how big the Purdue basketball recruit personality test is, but it's telling a lot about the character of those kids. And Painter's learning about that, which guys that is he perceiving as correctly? Are they really like selfless guys? Are the guys that love their teammates? Are the guys that love the game? Are the guys that love to work hard? That sort of thing. And I think that personality test may be the secret sauce. I don't know, but I had never heard that before. I don't know about you had. Let's see, what else? All right, so Painter has said this. Ray Davis addressed this in the Big Ten studio show or out of studio show on the road, whatever you want to call it. But he said, I've never heard Painter say this. Davis said this. I didn't write down the quote. I listened and then I wrote it down later. But he said he'd never heard Painter say this, that this is the deepest team with the best odds of going to the Final Four that he's ever had. And Painter talked about that. He said, the last time we went to the Final Four, we had all that pressure on us from losing to Fairleigh Dickinson. And he said it was a different type of lead-in to the season. There's no doubt it is. And he asked about, and I think one of the guys, maybe it was Revson, asked the question, how do you keep the edge? Because Paint always talks about teams keeping their edge. When you don't have the motivator of coming off of just a crippling defeat in the NCAA tournament, how do you keep your edge? And Trey Kaufman-Renn, by the way, I've said it before, I've sung his praises many times. The thoughtfulness of the way he answers questions, he's not just a normal dude. He's a peculiar, abnormal guy in the best possible way for a college athlete. And I mean that. There was a question that was asked. I cannot remember what it was, but he sat there for a good 5 to 7 seconds in silence, looking off, gathering his thoughts before he answered. And one thing he talked about, though, is these guys, these players, the guys who have stuck around, who have decided not to go into the portal, decided to come back and try to finish something that they started. They're different. They are different among college basketball players. I agree with it. And all three, Lawyer, because I think they talked to Lawyer, TKR, and Smith, but I think, if I remember correctly, Lawyer wasn't included in all events. But they all talked about their friends at other schools going through, trying to get settled in during that off season. And this team doesn't have to do that. How different of an experience that is. That's a really big deal. It is something that sets Purdue apart right now. It's very good. Obviously, losing 2 players that weren't starters, that was a big deal. And I told you, I was bothered by it. I'm still bothered by it. I wish one of those guys at least would have stayed. I think they would have helped. But the players, the complementary parts that are there are pretty damn good. And it just looks like this team is built well. Another thing that I heard that was kind of funny, kind of a side, there's a little bit of a snarkiness here, is that when Purdue scrimmages, generally they split Smith and TKR up. They don't put them on the same team very often. They do it for drills and for play work and all that. But when they're scrimmaging, generally they split them up. And they ask the question, why do you think they do that? And they both kind of laugh and they say, we want to keep practice competitive. I think what they're saying is we would absolutely dominate when together. And I think they are ready to dominate against real other college teams. Let's see. I think that's all I got. From my notes. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of things were said. Oh, one thing that's very interesting, and a lot of Purdue fans, including myself, thought it was noteworthy, is the pictures of Fletch, TKR, and Smith getting ready for media days in their suits. Very nice suits. I can't remember the name of the tailor. He and I have interacted many times on Twitter, and I think I know he is. He's on the Golden Blackboard. for years ago, back when I was boilered out over there. I don't have an accountant anymore by name, an account by name over there. But he's a really good tailor, really skilled. And if you look at what he did, clearly there's a thing happening with guys wearing high water pants. I'm not going to deny it. They all have really nice shoes on because you're going to get a lot of focus on those, Italian loafers, if that's what they chose there. But then in Chicago, all three players who were, their pants were at least 3-4 inches too high off their ankles, my opinion. That's okay. It's a trend. It's style. I've moved on from that. That style. But they all were wearing white leather basketball shoes at that point, which made that starkness, the difference of having your pants that high, even more noteworthy. So maybe you noticed that. I thought it was something that was a thing, if nothing else. So I got some of you guys are on here on this Friday afternoon. You're cutting work, but you're here doing something more important than work. You're hashing it out with your pals here. And the first one here is Ron Gable. Good to see you. Ted Berkey's here as well. M3 Adjuster says, happy Friday. Same to you. Daniel Pritchett says, thank God it's Friday. And speaking of your name, Daniel, that's one thing that Daniel Jacobson was talked about 3 or 4 times and his importance to this team. And Painter said, he's an interesting guy because in practice, he's not the same guy he is on game day. And I don't know if that means it's the bright lights or the blood in the water or whatever, he changes. But it sounded like in practice, he doesn't have the killer mentality that he does in games. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. We've already seen him as a starter at Purdue for a couple games, but not many, not long run. So we still don't know the starting lineup. I still think it's going to be Cox as the 3 guard. And then we'll have Jacobson and, Clough and TKR. That's my guess. That's my guess for starting 5. I think I said that. I hope I'm being consistent. So Ryan Lewis says, go Boilers. How are you, Ryan? Nolan Hosteller says, boil down, talking ball on a Friday afternoon. This is what I live for. Wow. That's a huge compliment. And you need to find some other things to live for, because me talking about basketball, it's okay. There are greater things. I know you're tongue in cheek, but I appreciate it. Steve Azano says, nothing could have capped the week better than a quick cast. Again, the compliments. You guys make me blush. Marshall Briggs says, afternoon to you, sir. Hope you're well. Ted Berge says, looking forward to basketball for people to respect Purdue sports. You don't have to look that far. You can look at volleyball right now. People really respect that volleyball squad. And Dave Shondell is doing and has done some pretty amazing things. The football program, like we've all talked about, is a work in progress. Some really good points. I've heard different people just talking about what the team's mentality must be right now, coming off of 3 straight losses where honestly, they weren't that close, if we're just being real frank, and they got muscled up in at least, could you say 2? At least 2 of those games. USC beat them definitely. USC beat them up over the top. Notre Dame could do whatever they wanted, just a superior team, superior personnel all over the field. USC, obviously, the athletes. Purdue struggled with them. And then Illinois, that second quarter, they just dismantled Purdue's defensive backfield. We'll see. I think it's going to be awfully hard to cure the problems in that defensive backfield for our Boilers. I do think that Minnesota is not going to be able to pick them apart like these other teams have. They don't have the wide receivers. They don't have the quarterback. And the other thing, if what we saw last week was a start of something good, meaning Purdue's front starts really hitting teams in the mouth a little bit, you don't have to do it all game. You don't have to be dominant yet. But gets to the quarterback a little bit. If you can get to Minnesota's quarterback, he's not the guy that can extend the play like previous Minnesota quarterbacks. He doesn't have a big arm. He's a bit of a work in progress, I would say as well. But man, just if they can disrupt him, Purdue can, if not compete to win up in Minneapolis, they can win. So let's see what happens. Austin Ray says, Paint pulled the right strings with the sitting in it, lost FDU, no doubt about it. So I hope he's playing it right here too, i.e. no reason to run from the expectations. Really good point, and a really stark contrast from where Painter focused, right? And I think that's one of the best things about Painter is his ability to not do the same things over and over and over. I think early in his time at Purdue, everybody thought, okay, he's a defensive-minded coach. Purdue's a defensive-minded program. That's it. Well, that's shifted around. We've seen defensive-minded teams, offensive-minded teams. He said very clearly he wants Purdue to be the best offensive team in America this year. That's a big deal. That's a big change, I think, from some other programs they have. And sitting in it, the idea of saying, okay, we're going to address the fact that we sucked last year and we made a major, major mistake in losing to a team that we shouldn't have lost to. And we've got to marinate. We've got to, a baby sitting in a dirty diaper is what I thought every single time when he would say it. And if you know what a baby looks like after sitting in a dirty diaper, it hurts them, right? It stings, and they've got to deal with the consequence of that. I know that's going a little deep, but that's always what I thought about that analogy. And I was like, man, that's rough. Makes the baby cry too. Purdue was tougher than a baby. They sat in it and it worked. And I think Fairleigh Dickinson, I'm not kidding. You know that I had a Fairleigh Dickinson t-shirt that I bought from Home Field just to remind me all the time of, if it wasn't for them, was it for Fairleigh Dickinson? I still believe Purdue doesn't go to the Final Four. Purdue was so on edge, and Zach Edey set such a tone with that team that next year. The question is, everybody says Fletch Lawyer is the vocal leader of this team. TKR says it, Smith says it, Painter says it, other players say it. So is Fletch Lawyer's vocal nature along with Smith's really a quiet leader, which is interesting because he's got a big personality and he plays with that major chip on his shoulder. TKR is also a quiet leader, right? But it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic of change with TKR playing as a true 4 instead of a 5. Will he be able to stay out of foul trouble? Will he play defense differently? Will he attack the glass differently? I don't know. He also talked about the funny thing when Smith is trying to set that assist record, trying to take that from Hurley. TKR said, I got to make sure I hit my floaters. That was a really good point. He said it with a grin. So very good point. One thing that I thought would be really interesting, and Smith never said this, but I thought it'd be really interesting for Smith to say, I don't really care about winning the Player of the Year award in the Big Ten. I'd rather have TKR win it, and I'd like to help him win it. And I thought with all the assists that he might rack up to TKR in the two-man game and getting the ball up near the rim for Jacobson, he could really do that. He can propel those guys into really a very high stratosphere. And Payne talked about one thing that's great about Smith is he makes the guys around him great. That's a sign of a really, really great player. So Smith didn't say that, by the way. He said, yes, I want to win the individual awards, but the individual awards don't come unless you win on the court. He also said his first 2 years, it's a reminder. He said, my first 2 years starting, Fletch's first 2 years starting too, they had 11 losses. And he said every loss we had was a court storming loss. That's still, I know we all know that. I know we all remember that, how much that sucked every single time we saw it, but it's an incredible, incredible factoid. No doubt about it. Let me keep going. Dan says the Gary Parrish interview was incredible. Yes, it was. And if you haven't watched it, get on YouTube, look it up. It's great. It's great. And Parrish really has a lot of respect for Painters, no doubt. He showed it in previous years, but it's a great interview, and it talks about these other things. Need to be inversed, Andrew says, I've been following Purdue basketball since listening as a kid to Cliz call games on the old radio in the 90s. I'm still floored at how consistently great they are. Incredible. Go Boilers. Yeah, it's been pretty, the culture, I think about this all the time. Painter talks about, I'm going to show you guys something too. Painter talks about Katie setting the tone for culture. He said it before, and I'm going to show you guys something. Yeah, this wasn't planned. So Jay Money gave me an idea. He said, with Katie getting up in age, I want to get something signed by both Katie and Painter. And so he inspired me to buy this from a collector vendor. And I think this is the coolest thing. And this is going to go on my wall soon. I just wanted you guys to see it. See, it's babyface Matt Painter and Gene Katie in his prime as a coach. I just love that image. And I love the fact that the culture is in such good hands. That's going to go on my wall up there. It probably won't ever be in frame. That's one thing that I'm bothered by. But I love it. I just think it's such a cool thing, and it's so poetic. I just love the culture of this basketball program. So just want to share that with you guys. Rob White says, Paint and the coaches take them to. Paint and the coaches take them to. Oh, the personality tests. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So it's something, maybe it's like ongoing know thyself. So I know for a fact that one of the philosophy professors, if not the head of the philosophy department at Purdue, listens to and watches Boiled Sports. And the reason I know that is my nephew is in the philosophy. He is a minor in philosophy? He takes philosophy courses, and he said one of his professors brought it up with him. So I'm not sure I think it's the head of the department, but I'm not positive. That head of the department is really good friends with TKR. And that know thyself thing is something among philosophers. It's a bedrock foundational trait that you really need to know yourself to really start learning more about the world and more about the world around you. And yeah, it's a big deal. So maybe Paint knows that too. Jim Garfinkel says, might not be able to redshirt Antoine West. Yeah, there are a lot of good things coming out in practice about how good Antoine West is, how he's flirting with being in the 6 or 7 man rotation. Maybe even a starter. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So it's great to see. Jay Wood says, if Omer Meyer goes to media day next year, he'll still only be half as handsome as Dowd, Jay and Anish. I'm going to disagree with you there. That dude is freaking really handsome. The jawline on Omer Meyer is something that many alabaster statues of antiquity admire. That dude's got a crazy jawline. So, and I think my wife would actually disagree with that, but I do appreciate you guys are very kind today. It's a nice crowd. Marshall Briggs says, check prices for games at Mackey. Sheesh. Yeah, I agree. Didn't know they were that pricey. Plus all the games are nearly sold out already. I think they are sold out now, which is good, but wild. Still going to try to make a game though. Yeah, I think they all sold out. I was on Purdue Sports after they released them to the public, to the poor guys like me, who aren't big donors. And I watched the seats evaporating. So if they're not gone yet, I would suggest go on Purdue Sports and get tickets, because you're not going to find anything close to that. If you go on like Vivid Seats or one of the other the third-party brokers, they'll just blister you. You're looking at $350 right now. And if Purdue tears off a couple games in the pre-con, which they probably will, it's going to get worse. They're going to get higher priced. Nina B. Inverse says, love that photo. Great pickup. Yeah, I do too. I love it. Certificate of authenticity, the whole thing. Love it. And I'm not a big signed gear or authentic gear guy. I'm not a big, game used jersey type guy. I like photos because they jog my memory, but that one kind of scratches both itches, and the fact that it's real. So now I don't have it on this wall in another room in my house. I've got a John Wooden signed picture of him as a player. Not a big fan of him as a coach. I know that's sacrilege for many people, especially college basketball fans. But I just like to think, okay, before he was, a big time coaching legend, he was a Boilermaker, and his roots are at Purdue. So I just love that shot. Dan says, sounds like PJ will be next in line once Paint is ready to hang it up. Yeah, PJ is really making moves, and Paint referenced him and how much of a good mind he is, because Paint knew that he was talked about as one of the best X's and O's coaches, and he said, well, PJ really is that guy right now. So I love that. It's selfless. One of the really cool things, Painter received an alumni award, a Purdue alumni award. It's a very high honor for Purdue University. I think only 30 have been given out, if I remember correctly. But he received that at practice this last week. I don't know if you guys saw the video on Twitter, Boiled, or on Instagram, wherever. And Paint was clearly humbled by it. I don't know if he knew it was coming, but then right after, he says, all right, stack it up. So just like he gets this award in front of the whole team, the coaching staff, and then he goes right into coaching mode and saying, all right, guys, practice is over. And he didn't sit very long and celebrate it. So still pretty cool moment. Marshall Briggs says, not basketball related, but quickly, what are your thoughts on Coach Odom's demeanor after the Illinois loss? Yeah, I talked about this in the post game, I don't know if you got to watch it. I loved his demeanor in the post game and directly in the post game because he was pissed and he should have been pissed. That effort is not acceptable, especially that second quarter. I keep saying it's easy to look at the entire game through the prism of that. But really, the second quarter and then the other moment, there's one moment that the game was still teetering. It could have gone Purdue's way. Purdue's defense shuts Illinois down. They punt it, and then Jackson fumbles the punt. He muffs the punt, and Illinois gets the ball in scoring position. I think scored 2 plays later. Those two things were so important in that game. And I'm not putting all the loss on Jackson's feet. I know I've talked a lot about it. I think it's okay to talk about a guy that's that old. Like I said, he's a pro. He's a veteran. He's been around, and I think he can. He should have big enough shoulders he can take it. He should be able to take the criticism. He's older than many NFL players right now. But yeah, those moments really, really mattered. That whole second quarter was an absolute abysmal performance, specifically the defensive backfield. And they deserved everything they got. I'm sure they paid hell in practice. I'm positive. Odom reminds me a bit of me in his way of approaching things. I think he's much better at staying calm, but he gets pissed off and he's excitable too. He doesn't show it to the public very often. He's, like I said, he's better at it than me. A lot of people said we kind of look alike. I'd be a very mini version of him. I think he's probably 5'10". I'm 5'4". But both handsome as the day is long. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I kind of relate with him as a person, I think. And I've got to meet him a couple times. And yeah, I liked his demeanor. I liked the way he handled that post game. I liked the fact that it was different. And he said enough, being, media savvy and being a nice guy. He had a couple moments during that presser where he was pretty direct about certain motivators. Dang nabbit. He was very direct about teams staying motivated in spite of the condition of things, in spite of losing 3 games in a row, because they're competitors and they should stay motivated. I thought it was a very good perspective. So, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what you thought about it. I thought he was still very direct in the presser on Monday after cooling off. Not as pissed off, but still very direct. And I'm a fan of Odom, and I think he's going to turn around, and I sure hope I'm right, just because I like the old school way of doing things, and I think he is very old school. The hard thing about old school doing things the old school way is a lot of players have a hard time hearing the old school way of motivating in practice. Painter is still old school on the other side. Shondell is pretty old school. That's why I think, and I talked about this weeks ago, how there's a Purdue fit that's happening there. I think he's a really good Purdue fit with Purdue culture. The question is, will it show up in wins and losses? And you sure hope it shows up in wins soon. So, last question from Marshall Briggs says, thoughts on Purdue getting all 3 votes in the for number 1 in the Big Ten? I think Purdue is legit in every bit of respect they're getting from the media. I think it's amazing that Michigan didn't get one, but I think people know that you have the combination of, you have a confluence of factors. I say that phrase a lot, but when you have the confluence of factors what Purdue has right now, they deserve the number 1 preseason vote. And what's that mean in the long run? Nothing. Braden Smith talked about that being preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. It doesn't mean a damn thing. It just means people think you're pretty good, and there's some rollover from last year. Ask Illinois what it means to be preseason, respected in the polls, get up to the top 10, and they get your ass kicked by IU, right? That's kind of one of those things where you say, okay, yeah, Illinois was good. They ended the season well. They won a bowl game versus South Carolina, I believe. So what was that worth during that game when IU was kicking their balls in? Well, I mean, it wasn't worth a damn thing, right? Illinois had some factors they were dealing with there. They had a defensive back. There was 2 defensive backs that were hurt. They also lost motivation. Pretty amazing coaching job for Belima to stop the bleeding versus USC the way he did. Get that team to stay motivated. That speaks to what Odom, the way he thinks about motivation for players. But in the same way, The preseason rankings don't matter. What matters is if you win, right? What matters is if Purdue goes on a tear when they're supposed to. What matters if they beat the teams they're supposed to beat. First off, handle your business, and then go in the games that are closely contested, where you have a lot of talent on the other side of the ball. Michigan, for instance, Michigan's gonna be really, really good. Do you go into IU? Do you go into Assembly Hall when they are just frothing at the mouth and you just handle them, right? Purdue should be better. Purdue should be more talented. Purdue is a better coached team. Do they handle the emotion, right? Brian Newbert had an adage a couple years ago I thought was great. He said something like, you win Big Ten championships on Tuesday nights in February. Meaning it's not the big stage games when you clinch the Big Ten title. It's just continuing to be motivated when you go to Northwestern and Rutgers, places like that. It's a really good point. It's really interesting. With the imbalanced schedule, it's a little harder because like the retribution thing that always comes up after a loss, you have to come back and make up for it. That doesn't happen anymore, right? So you have to stay even keel, and you just have to stay professional, meaning acting professional, doing what you do over and over. So this team's good enough to do what they do versus pretty much every team they play and beat them. So, yeah, right on. Great talking to everybody. Have a good afternoon. I think it's a quick cast. It's under 40 minutes. Close enough. And if you don't think it's a quick cast, then you haven't been around here long enough when I'm talking for an hour. So hope you have a great weekend. And one of us will talk to you after the Minnesota game. I don't think I'm doing post game, but somebody will be here. I can assure you that. God bless you. Hammer down. Talk soon. We'll see you.